All right, folks, we're wrapping up yet another volatile year. Now, if you remember on Friday, I gave you my picks for the winners of 2019, the blue-collar worker and Tiger Woods. Well, time for a look at the losers. I want to bring back District Media President Beverly Hallberg. She's in studio with me. And first, the number one loser, in my opinion, the financial media. If you watched some of these other guys, some of these publications, you would think the world was ending. Recession was imminent. The trade dispute with China was destroying everything. As seen by the facts, though, nothing could be further from the truth. And, you know, even the day, December 13th, when the deal was announced by President Trump, even that day, the financial media got it wrong over and over again. And I hate to say it, I think some folks are looking at this, Beverly, through the lens of how they feel about the president rather than actual economic data and news.
Reporters would never do that, would they? Look, I found this summer probably the most egregious story about the financial sector was talking about this impending recession. We heard these doom and gloom predictions. Look where we are today. I think the good news is the American consumer did not listen to it. They still went out there. They still shopped. They still bought things. So I think not just the political news, but also financial news. I think there's a distrust of the media as a whole.
But I tell you what, last December, the general public did listen. And I think the media almost tipped us into a recession. I'll tell you why. We saw one of the biggest spikes ever in income and one of the biggest declines almost ever in spending in a single month. It was mind-boggling. We were making so much more money as a country, but not spending it because we were listening to the news. To your point, enough folks did not do that this time around, but it's a dangerous thing. You're a loser. You're a big loser.
Let me go to my group loser first. So it is in the same vein of reporting. I think there was a lot of poor reporting in 2019. But the loser of the year, in my opinion, was the Washington Post, who struggled, and they shouldn't struggle on this, struggled to write an accurate headline for the ISIS terrorist who was killed by the U.S. forces, calling Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi an austere religious scholar and not calling him an Islamic terrorist and murderer. This shouldn't be that hard. Here's someone who has killed U.S. troops, who has murdered his own people. Is it really that hard to describe him for what he is?
I think he murdered a few people in that cave on his way out. It's the same thing driving it, though, right? I mean, to a degree. I mean, let's face it, it's the Washington Post hatred for President Trump that they would even mess up a headline as simple as that.
Let me give you a couple more stories, too. Of course, there was the collusion narrative that was peddled for 2 years. There weren't many outlets who talked about them being wrong for 2 years on that story. And also what happened in January, I think this was an atrocious story, the slanderous attacks against the Covington boys when they were at the Lincoln Memorial. The truth came out. There was a lawsuit against CNN and Washington Post, but there was a lot of incorrect reporting this year. I think people are tuning out.
And for a lot of media outlets that always talk about bullying, to your point, they jumped on that bandwagon quickly. I'm going to have a little bit of fun with another loser. Now, remember, my individual winner was Tiger Woods. There were a lot of folks who were up for that. Let's stick with sports. Without a doubt, the biggest loser this year, referees. Well, let's say this, referees and instant replays. Cobble in social media, I got to tell you, it is crazy. Every time they go to the replays, and you can see, yeah, the guy had both feet in. They don't change. It's gotten worse. It's perplexing. I read over in Europe, it's the same thing. They've got a system in soccer called VAR. People are up in arms. You can see what was right and wrong, and still the refs don't change their calls.
I think it's all about incentives. They don't have the incentive to overturn their call because then they agree they made a mistake. I think this is what the leagues need to do. They need to say, if you are getting enough bad calls, you don't get to work in this field anymore. There just aren't enough bad incentives for them to lose their job.
Or get rid of instant replay. I thought it was going to be good, but so far, net. Who's your individual loser?
Oh, by the way, can I say go 49ers? I'm very excited about them this year. They're a winner.
Cut off her mic.
Only losers. So my individual loser of the year goes to Adam Schiff, the face of the Democrats when it comes to the impeachment hearing. Two major mistakes this year. One is that he completely lied about the whistleblower talking to him in advance. Even the Washington Post, who we've already attacked, gave him 4 Pinocchios for that lie. But second of all, it was his paraphrasing the phone call with the president of Ukraine, with the president, President Trump, of course. If you need to give a parody for the actual phone call, of course that works into the president's hands. A phone call must not have been that bad if you're willing to make it up.
Yeah. Beverly, it's great seeing you.
Good to see you.
See you soon. Well, another terrible attack.